there everyone, Lone Wolf 360 here back again for another video. Sorry that I got sidetracked for the past couple of days, but you know how life can be sometimes. But of course, let me get back into the point of the video. So as of recently, I discovered this show called Pantheon, and if I were going to be completely honest here about my thoughts on the show, I'd say it's pretty good for the most part. Like, its animation's on point, its storytelling and its characters are pretty neat, and by the time that I was done with the first season, I just wanted more of it. And while I will lightly talk about the plot, I'm going to be talking about one of the major flaws within the show, despite it being great. So of course, let me talk about the story. So the story follows two main characters, one of those characters being Madison Camp, or Maddie as she's referred to throughout the rest of the show, and Caspian. And while their stories don't really seem like they would connect in the beginning, by the end everything makes sense. So from Maddie's story, pretty much he's living like how most teenagers do, going to high school, being depressed, and all that showbiz. But while that does happen, she ends up talking to some people on the dark web, like how most teenagers do, with someone that she talks to being Caspian, and then another person being someone that she doesn't really recognize. But then when that very person that starts talking to her starts messing with her life in a somewhat positive way, her mom catches on to who it might be, and she finds out that instead of her father dying due to a terminal illness that allegedly killed him a few years back, he was actually kept alive and became one of the first people that identifies as a UI, or uploaded intelligence. So just for a bit of context, a UI is pretty much like someone's mind that has been uploaded to a machine. And because Maddie's dad was one of the few people that were working on this tech before he eventually succumbed to his illness, he was someone that ended up volunteering for this thing when he was on his literal last legs before he died. But of course, let me get back into the plot. So after Maddie finds out about this information, there are a few things that happen. To start off, she goes to the dark web to pretty much spread this conspiracy about logarithms, which is pretty much like the big bad of this series about them being responsible for this in the first place. Then there's also Caspian, which finds out about this conspiracy and does a little bit of investigating himself, which leads to sort of other events in the story. There's also this other thing to where Maddie hooks up with some people that know about UIs, and mainly due to what are those people knowing a UI themselves, and another person just, well, being another UI. And after a successful escape attempt, or after a successful escape from logarithms with her dad, there are a few other things that happen as well. Like, for example, Maddie finally gets to reconnect with her dad after all these years of lost time with him being dead and all. There's also this odd family dynamic to where, you know, Maddie's like accepting of her dad coming back, but then her mom really isn't feeling it because it's just kind of hard to, you know, adjust after that grieving period of being like, oh yeah, my loved one was dead, but then they suddenly came back. Oh yeah, and then there's also this other thing, which is like a central thing to the plot, to where it's pretty much like a race against time to find out a cure to a certain flaw, which essentially kills any UI, because with the more processing power that they use, the more that their mind literally deteriorates. But then there's also Caspian's story, as I mentioned earlier, to where but the more he pays attention to the stuff that's going on around him, like investigating with logarithms and a whole bunch of other stuff, things are just starting to click, and, you know, with his parents eventually finding out, it just gets pretty intense, especially towards the ending of the show. But now that I'm done talking about the plot, how about I get into talking about the general flaws of this show, or just mainly the marketing. Now, I'm going to be completely honest here when I say this, but I've seen marketing that has been bad. I've seen marketing that has been misleading, but I've never seen marketing for a show that has been both non-existent and misleading simultaneously. And trust me, I'm gonna go a bit into all of this in a second. So to start off with, like, the whole non-existent part, if it wasn't bad enough for this show being stuck on a platform called AMC Plus, I already made a whole video ranting about why I think there's way too many streaming services now. Yeah, the fact that this show has had like no marketing whatsoever truly speaks to the quality of just like this platform in general. Because how are you gonna try and put a show on this one platform but at the same time, never market this platform that it's on, or never market the show. Hell, when you ask a good majority of people that have watched this thing on like the Pantheon subreddit, 9 out of 10 times you're gonna find people saying that, oh yeah, they just kind of found it through like a random torrenting site or something like that. And that's kind of sad, because I feel like this show would be a whole lot better if it was like on a platform that people actually gave a shit about. But how about we talk about the misleading part as well? So when it comes to the misleading part, I'm going to be talking about two things. One thing, I'm going to be talking about this trailer, which I could hopefully find on YouTube, and then also the main poster. So when you get the trailer for the show, at least the one that I've seen, you're given this sort of online or Matrix type vibe of what they're trying to go with here. With this action-focused thing where it takes place inside of a video game and all this other stuff. And sure, well, that is an aspect of the show, or like, while it is a part of it, that's not really the main focus. Like, when you watch the show for yourself, you can tell it's more like a character drama thing compared to a more action-focused anime. And I just kind of feel like it's kind of misleading, because sure, while the plot was intriguing to have me interested in for like a good majority of it, I'm pretty sure that if someone with like a different perspective were to watch the trailer then watch the show, they would see that there's like so much of a big difference in between there. And it also kind of plays in with the poster as well, because sure, Maddie is the main character, and sure, her VR avatar is a part of the show, but as I mentioned earlier, the whole taking place inside of a video game takes a huge backseat, and that's not even really like a main focus for a good majority of it. And before I like bash something, like sounding like an asshole without offering something constructive, I don't know, maybe instead of having the one character that doesn't really need to struggle with finding their humanity or having to really sacrifice anything, put up the actual characters which actually have to deal with this. Like, put up her dad, put up Lori, put up the actual UIs of the show, which represent this team. Hell, you do have this one character which is kind of like a subtle reference to Ghost in the Shell, so maybe if you wanted to go there, you could have made like some cheeky reference of that. But hey, I'm not a showrunner, I'm not a marketing guy, I'm just a YouTuber posting my ideas out there on the internet. But at the end of the day, Pantheon is a pretty great show, and the fact that it's not only stuck on a platform called AMC+, but the fact that it also hasn't been marketed is honestly a bit of a shame, because you have something great here which could honestly stand on its own without having to be stuck on a streaming service. But that's all I really have to say, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Enjoy the outro, and I hope to see you guys in another video coming soon. Later, folks.